We're working now with a model of the ventricles of the brain. As you can see here, it really doesn't look like much. It actually looks pretty awkward if you're comparing it to anything else that you've ever seen. But that's partly because the ventricles of the brain are actually spaces in your brain that contain a substance called cerebrospinal fluid. And cerebrospinal fluid allows you to be able to circulate the nutrients, oxygen, and waste products to and from the neural cells or the neural tissue and the blood circulation. You can kind of look at this model of the spaces here. If I tilt it like that, you can see this portion here matches that portion there. This particular ventricle is shaped for how it shapes over the corpus callosum. You see that? If you want to pause it for a few seconds to take a very good look, you can see the shaping here as compared to the shaping there. Something that you really need to understand is that when we talk about ventricles, this is kind of like what we did with this model is it's kind of like watching a CSI episode, and they find a mud print, a footprint in the mud, and they take that cast, they make a cast of the footprint, they pour in that putty into the footprint in the mud, it hardens, and then they have a solid replica of the footprint. So that's what they did here. It's like they poured this putty into the spaces of the brain, and then they walked out with a hard model or representation of the spaces. And that's why you can see this matching up with that, because there is a space just above the corpus callosum, and that's where this comes into play. Now, also with the ventricles of the brain, you'll also see where you have this area right here. I'm sorry this is so fuzzy, but if you look here, you can see this third ventricle, and it looks like the beak of a bird here, and you'll see that it matches with the space that happens to be in between the two portions of the hypothalamus. That space matches that space. As a matter of fact, if you look down here, this ventricle, the fourth ventricle, matches the fourth ventricle that you see there. See this? And then if I turn this around as such, here's the fourth ventricle, there's the cerebral aqueduct, and there's the cerebral aqueduct. As a matter of fact, if you flip this model back over, you'll see where there's a hole here. They refer to this hole as a foramen. As a matter of fact, that's known as the interventricular foramen. And that interventricular foramen, that hole, is specifically for the intermediate mass, the bridge that connects the two sides of the thalamus. So when you flip this model over, you can see the right lateral ventricle, you can see the left lateral ventricle, you can see the fourth ventricle, you can see the cerebral aqueduct, and then you can see the third ventricle.